Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of UpGrade with Maria Kay, the podcast where your success, freedom, and happiness get a weekly boost. And I am so honored to have you here again. I know life is busy. I know that sometimes you have to make tough choices. But I'm so excited that you have taken this time out from your busy schedule to take some time and tend to your own personal life upgrade. I'm excited today because I am actually live with our special guest, a very, very special guest. And I have Hellenic Argiru, who is a clinical psychologist. She is a trainer and a drummer, and she is right next to me. We are kindred soul sisters from the same island, doing very, very similar work, blazing a trail, and teaching and sharing and inviting whoever really is inspired to listen to step out of a place that they find themselves perhaps that isn't pleasing them right now and move themselves up with the help of this podcast and professionals and their own personal power into a space that they cannot wait to wake up to every single day. So today's title is How to Use Ancient Wisdom to Assist in a Modern Upgrade. And if you've been hanging around with me since day one of this podcast launch, you'll understand that I am interested in you experiencing life in the most heightened fashion possible. I am passionate about helping you convert your dreams into reality. And today, Hellenic and I are going to do our very best to share with you some really special stuff. So Hellenic, welcome.
Thank you very much, Maria. Lovely to meet you. And I'm very excited to be sharing what we'll be talking about today.
Wonderful. So we're going to get stuck straight in. Before I do want to invite you over to the Facebook group. If you haven't already joined us, we're having a great time over there. Simply search UpGrade with Maria Kay, and you'll be able to share anything that's troubling you, any requests perhaps for future podcast topics that you may have in mind. Share with me your breakdowns, your breakthroughs, and really just come into the community where you will be so very warmly welcomed. So Hellenic, I know that you are really passionate about drawing on ancient wisdom to assist us in our modern life and in improving and upgrading on what we've got. Could you talk us through a little bit about what you love about the lessons and the teachings of the ancient times, perhaps touching on specifically what went on in Cyprus all those years ago as well?
Yes, thank you. Great question. There's a lot of modern teachings that are in fact based in very ancient wisdom. And for me, it's always been interesting to make that connection, to actually see the bridge between the old wisdom and the modern research, for example. And we have many ways to track knowledge from ancient India, from ancient Greece, from ancient Mesopotamia. Many different cultures lived on this planet and contributed enormously to the question of personal power, how to live life well, what the meaning of life is, what our purpose is here in this universe. And it does become an important inquiry for each life, I believe, to really dig deep at some point and figure out what your true ethics, principles, and values are for your life. So for me as a psychologist, it's been natural to be interested in how the modern research is confirming some of the ancient Greek philosophy, for example. And in Cyprus, we have many different cultures that have moved through the land, and the majority and the longest standing of those was the Greek nation. So we have a dialect here of Greek speaking language. We have people here that are drawing on the Greek nation and the Greek customs and culture. That means that on some level we relate very much to ancient Greek philosophy. And so we have here certain relics that are dedicated to the ancient philosophers. But more importantly, we have the whole island dedicated to the goddess Aphrodite, who was called many different names throughout history. And to me, that's really relevant in the modern times, because we are, in my opinion, suffering from a kind of crisis with the feminine. There is an enormous amount of abuse and crisis around the way that we deal with the feminine principle. And by that, I don't just mean female bodies and female minds and female life experiences. I do mean everything that we consider feminine. So that would be emotions, the heart, the planet itself. These have all been given feminine quality. And if you look at the way we treat these, we do have a real struggle right now in how we are treating our emotional life and how we integrate our heart into our wisdom. We tend to separate the heart from the mind, when in fact true wisdom comes in blending the two together. So for me, the ancient wisdom of Cyprus is always teaching me about how to reconsider what happened here in ancient times, and to look at how it's relevant today, because there's a legacy and a lineage here of one of the greatest amount of female devotees to the feminine principle. In fact, many of these women were drummers, so there is lots of texts that refer to this now. They weren't before. Lots of people are excavating this history to explain a time where women had and held a lot of power. This is relevant to us now because after patriarchy, after a lot of struggle, after a lot of wars, we have seen a real problem unfold in the way that we treat the female gender and the way that we treat female bodies and the way then that we treat other things that we associate to the feminine. So Cyprus, Aphrodite, and the history here is for me a great teaching on how to hold up higher once again these very powerful qualities that the great goddess once represented and still does to some. The qualities of love, sacred sexuality, creativity. These are all important for us to revalue in life. And there's more to say, but I think that's a good place to begin for now.
Wonderful. So we can see, Hellenique, that the women as well as the men in ancient times held a lot of power. There was a lot of congruency and authenticity at that time. And as you say, we're in a crisis now. Things are kind of, over the years have crumbled. What could you say to our listeners to perhaps enlighten them and enable them to deeper understand how they too can maybe reconnect to their own personal power and start living in a more congruent way, i.e. in their true self?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a lot to learn from the ancient world, and perhaps there were also very difficult experiences then, and I'm sure there were a few of their own crises going on in different ways in ancient times too. But certainly when we look at this question of personal power, it's becoming much more important in this day and age for each individual to become truly an individual. Before, people worked a lot more in communities, and it was important to support the collective. It's very important now still, but certainly more can be done if we are more evolved as individual beings. So we can learn something from Aristotle, who spoke a lot about what he called the entelechy. At the end of a movie, you might see the ancient Greek word there that says telos, T-E-L-O-S, coming from this word entelechy in ancient Greek, which means to reach completion. We have this concept in psychology as well, which Carl Gustav Jung called individuation, and Robert Maslow, who actually is a big inspirator for the whole coaching scene and the positive psychology, self-help movement online, is very much inspired by Maslow's work, because he spoke about this concept in a different way, and he called it actualization. So these three thinkers represent to us a concept of how it is really important for a human life to keep developing. And in order to do that, we have to satisfy our basic needs. Then we move to our emotional needs. Then we move to our spiritual needs. And then we truly actualize. We become really authentically connected to our own sense of power. And we offer our uniqueness, who we really are authentically and truthfully, our essence, nature, to the collective. We become of service to others, but through our own individual gifts. So I think in this way, Socrates also helps because he demonstrated the importance of having a relationship in the path of self-development. And as a psychologist, and I know you, Maria, as a coach, we take very specific attention to the development of the self, and we can assist people to be in that process in some kind of dialogue with us. And this is what Socrates demonstrated as well. He was saying very often that the conversation between two people will help them become more self-actualized. So it's helpful on your journey in getting in touch with your power and in learning more about your power to have dialogue, conversation with experts, with people that have been down the path before you. You know, whether you spend a short or a long time with them, the eye cannot see itself. So when you're in dialogue with others, like Socrates demonstrated, and the whole world of therapeutic self-development speaks of, it's helpful to have someone to engage with so that you can actually start looking at the places where you miss your power and have it returned to you so that you can become your own guru in life. But this process is well started when you have someone to help ignite it, when you have someone who's done it themselves, as an example. So it becomes really relevant then for us to know that even in ancient times, there were examples of therapy, coaching, self-development. It was held up very high by the ancient Greeks that, life is lived best when you can venerate beauty. And this is another quality of the goddess. And the feminine principle is the ability to be able to see oneself in a beautiful way and to become an asset to your environment, to bring out the best in others. And this, of course, all gets stronger, strengthens when we tap into our own power and we begin to see how beautiful we really are in our true nature.
Wow, I love that. Thank you for sharing that information. I have to admit, it's very new to me. So, we all learn something new every day. And I also love that you touched on being your own guru, because very often when a client begins working with me, I make it very clear to them that they, as well as having my support and my facilitation and my mentorship, that part of their program and their work with me will be to become gradually over time their own guru and reignite that maybe disconnected line of communication with their own inner being that over time has been maybe weakened from outside influences and perhaps growing up and people around them. So if you haven't already done so, there's a whole individual podcast on how to create and develop and deepen your self-awareness and reignite or reconnect, let's say, your inner communication lines, that ability that you can develop over time to, as Helenique earlier on mentioned, develop a great balance between the mind and the heart, and utilize that to, as you move forward on your upgrade journey, right? Remember, we're not labeling where we are as wrong. We're just simply stating that there's always room for more, and there's always an option to enhance whatever we've got going on now. And when you are able to become that sort of conscious observer of what's going on in your life and how you're feeling and how you are reacting or not reacting, Hellenique also mentioned, the emotions and how connected that is to the feminine. And so that really doesn't just apply to women. It also is very relevant for you guys as well. So this is relevant to all of us across the board, having a great opportunity to, on a daily basis, checking in and just being still and really giving yourself the opportunity to understand, receive the messages, and then either release or take on board whatever isn't needed, and discard whatever isn't needed. So if you haven't already done so, there's a whole podcast on how to develop that, what I call that awareness muscle. And I actually maintain, I'm very, very clear, and I believe very strongly that it's one of your most powerful power tools, self-awareness. So go back into the archives and grab that one if you haven't already done so. Hellenique, what can you contribute to the idea of fusing or perhaps drawing on some of the ancient wisdoms that you've already touched on, and perhaps you've got some more to share with us, and actually converting them into something we can apply today in modern life?
I had the fortune many years ago to experiment with drum. And for me, one of the greatest mysteries of my life is that I've turned into a drummer. And I still feel amazed by how this happened and by how connected it is to all of time. Because in fact, the ancient world was a place where people still interacted with nature on a daily basis. They were very connected to the essence of being. They were not separated by so many different filtering systems like we have today. And one very significant fact in ancient times was also that people created their own states of focused consciousness, I would say, and at times, in very specific ways, they would also be active creators of higher states of consciousness, meaning that they would themselves engage in dancing, singing, chanting, drumming rituals that would synchronize their energies with other people in the tribe or other people in the group, and collectively reach a kind of synergistic space where everybody was interconnected, and they would experience this as a kind of cleansing or a healing or a releasing kind of practice. And it was just under the guise of singing and dancing around the fire or having specific ceremony. For me, the ancient world teaches me how important this is, because even in modern times, our ways may have changed dramatically, but we still have the need to have a chat with our girlfriends when things are difficult. We have the need to have our children co-parented and supported by other people in the community, and we make the effort for that to happen. These are all very important traditional customs that existed all the way back into ancient times. So I think we have already now in our modern time a lot of problems with the fact that we don't have a lot of these customs and ceremonial ways of honoring them easily available, and we have to stretch and really struggle to provide these very necessary supportive structures to ourselves and to those around us, our families, and in our lives. So for me, returning back to the ancient world and seeing again, that these were important tools for life to be lived, and somehow drumming, singing, creative expression keeps returning to me as an indicator that actually now we need to implement very specific tools into our world. And one for me, as I mentioned, is drumming. Another one is singing. Another one is creative expression. And another one is just simply developing a relationship with your breath. This is one of the most basic, profound ways of developing self-awareness, like you were speaking about, Maria, a few minutes ago. The self-awareness is such an important part of developing our consciousness. So breath awareness is an immediate way to return back to the body. The minute you return back to the body, the mind stops thinking and you bring your energy back to this present time. So the breath, along with singing and dancing, moving the body, playing the drum, becomes again another very powerful tool to actually help us access much more power in this physical form, in this body, than we can have when we are thinking about the past or thinking about the future. The Buddhists always advise this to be a waste of time, that it's actually the source of all illness, to keep the mind rolling in the past and the present and in the likes and dislikes. It's much more helpful to be really present here and now. And with the drum, there is a very sophisticated process that can unfold for us to become very consciously aware of each and every sound. And this begins to create a pathway for us between our own present experience and the way that we connect with absolutely everything through the vibrational field. So this is, for me, one of the most profound ways to access personal power, because in it we can actually see that in every move we make, we are affecting the vibrational field. Then when you consciously act that out by playing a sound on a drum, and you become very good at it, in other words, you become quite sophisticated in your way of creating a lot of detail, a lot of self-expression comes through, your sense of power can only strengthen and clarify itself. And if you're lucky, you may even experience what I call rhythmic wisdom, which is, after prolonged periods of doing this, or extended periods of doing this, it's possible to begin to tap into the source of the wisdom of the world and how absolutely everything is connected, and to receive some mystical truths, universal truths about the order of this universe. So us drummers, along with some sound makers and sound mystics from ancient times, we all share this knowing that there is deep wisdom in the rhythm of life, and in the rhythm of playing a drum we can access that, and we can understand something very deep about ourselves and the power we have in each and every moment to create our reality.
Wonderful. So what would you say to our listeners perhaps who would like to start some kind of drumming practice, but perhaps they don't have access, or can they do it simply at home by themselves? Or do you have any resources that you can direct them to perhaps?
Yeah, there's a lot of drumming online. You can watch a lot of videos. You can buy a drum easily. If you'd like support from me, you're very welcome to join on to my database, and I send out information and free videos about how to get started, maybe in a frame drumming course, which relates beautifully to the island of Cyprus, because once, many years ago, we had more female drummers here than anywhere else in the world, and they all played their drums to honor the great goddess Aphrodite. And we have many relics here of ancient frame drummers. So the frame drum is the most ancient of them all. It does take a little bit more concentration and patience to practice it, but it connects us to the feminine principle quite immediately. There's a tenderness and a gentleness to playing. Something a little easier to manage is the djembe drum that comes from Africa. And if you get onto my tribe list, you can get a lot of information, quick, easy links to help you buy just a standard synthetic drum that you can begin practicing with, and then you could purchase an online course and take yourself through a few processes. You know, there's courses that teach you a bit more about the frame drum and the divine feminine alchemy that goes along with it, and this lineage of Cypriot drummers. There's other courses which are in collaboration with the breath and the brain yoga taught by a Kundalini teacher that I collaborated with in America, that really connects you more to your higher states of awareness in the brain using African drumming and very specific rhythms that I've designed over the last 18 years that help to synchronize the hemispheres. That's called Imagenius, I'm a Genius. The frame drumming is called Ahanasa. And there's also these simple techniques that one can begin to do with just awareness of the fingers, so that you connect your nervous system more consciously to your mind, helping to strengthen the the neuropsychological pathways. But really, any pulse in your life, any systematic stepping as you're walking, climbing a mountain, working out in your exercise routine, any of these practices that involve a consistent pulse or rhythm are very good moments for you to begin to see if you can at least just connect your breath into the repeating pulse that you can become aware of. This is a very good starting point. But then there is some tuition training needed to actually learn to play certain structures and sequences, which will help to develop a kind of sophistication in your neural pathways in your brain system, the way you're using your motor skills, your fingers and your hands, and how you coordinate that with your thinking, becomes quite a sophisticated system of concentration, which does have an amazing ability to reduce a lot of symptoms as well, like anxiety and aggression can be reduced by learning to play the drum. So there are many benefits, but I would think the most significant one is that it really connects you to your personal power, helps you get in touch with your inner guru.
Wonderful. So, because our topic today is how to use ancient wisdom to assist in a modern life upgrade, Helenique, I'd like us, as we draw to a close today, I wondered if you would share one or two key points, final observations that you would like to share with our audience that they can possibly take away with them today at the end of this audio and put them straight into action, whether they be something practical or something that they can maybe use a pen and paper for, or start to even just think about and start to plant the seed possibly.
Great. Off the top of my head, I'd like to inspire you to start a morning ritual where you wake up in the morning very, very slowly, if you can, to do it in a 5-minute time frame before you actually open your eyes. This is helping you to reach a more conscious state in what we call the theta brainwave frequencies, which are very powerful states of consciousness just between the unconscious mind and the conscious mind. Theta is a very creative place. It helps you solve problems much quicker. And we don't get much time in it because we tend to slip off into sleep because we don't have this kind of ability to be consciously aware. So one practice is to really start your day just with the thought that you want to wake up a little slower, and see if you can spend some conscious time in this very melting state that we call theta just before you open your eyelids. Second one is to remember that consciousness is sexy. And I really love that. I put it on my Facebook page. I like to say it often. I like to think about it. And I think you might get a lot of insight from it, just thinking about it and understanding what is it that makes us really attractive and really fun to be around and makes us draw others to us, and why do we feel drawn to certain people. And if we can all elevate our understanding of sexiness, I think our world would change dramatically. The third is something I learned from a great man called Dr. DeMartini. You can check him out. He's amazing. Every day to start your day by saying, I am a genius and anything I wish is possible. This itself can absolutely transform your life and connect you to your power in the quickest, most efficient way possible.
I am a genius. Before we wrap up, well, there's two things. The first thing is I know that you've got some retreats coming up in this wonderful on this wonderful island of Cyprus. Please share where our audience can go and get some information. Is there a link? Is there a page online?
Great. Yes, thank you. This is a very special call to anybody who feels drawn to the island Cyprus and or to the divine feminine. It's a wonderful opportunity to learn to play the frame drum in sacred sites that were once temple grounds, sacred spaces for this divine feminine principle. The workshop is actually a 7-day retreat with frame drumming, sacred sound, Brahmari, some very specific brain yoga techniques that will help you deepen your sense of power and connect you to your own feminine divinity. It's on the 19th and 20th of March next year, starting off with a conference called Yin Aletheia, means become the truth. And it's ancient Greek also for the woman of truth and woman of the goddess. Thea in Greek means goddess, but Aletheia is truth. So we start off with a conference, and then we'll have 7 days of retreating into these places, as I've mentioned. And you're very welcome to join me. Check out my website, www.ahaintelligence.com. The retreat is called Ahanasa, Ahanassa, after the ancient name Anasa, which was used to call out the ancient name of the goddess. And there is another retreat planned for therapists, light workers, coaches, people who want to upgrade, up-level their lives, and want to understand the more deeper rhythmic wisdom and how to include it in their lives. That's going to be in the summer months of next year. But you can find all this information on my website and anywhere really, Google, YouTube. I'm very much on Facebook under the same names and promoting and sharing a lot of video material for you to get some free content as well. So we'd love to have you here, and I'd love to meet you one day. So thank you so much for listening.
Well, Helenique, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm excited because I see you with your instrument. I'll let you introduce it, but I know that we're going to give our audience a treat, and you're going to play something. So until next time from me, I am leaving you with as much courage to listen to not only your mind, but also your heart, and take that leap, whatever that may be for you this week. Until next time, Maria Kay.
Just a quick thank you to Maria for inviting me. It's been lovely to be here. And this is a tambourine. It's a drum with some metal rings on it. It makes a very beautiful rattling sound, and it's often used to celebrate in procession something joyful, something enigmatic and beautiful in life. So I give this to you, an offering for you to celebrate your own beauty, your own power that's already all there inside you, ready for you to acknowledge it and celebrate it and lift it up higher. I'm playing something I'm going to make up, and I welcome you to learn to play too if you feel called. Join us whenever you can. Thanks very much.